Okay. Just want to make, okay, so we are recording. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Is it evening? I just want to welcome and tell me if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. It's Katie Hosey?
That's correct.
Okay, this is Katie Hosey.
Yes.
I am Carla Scipio from Hello Beautiful, the woman with the power of the stories, where each woman has a story, and every woman's story is powerful in its own right. Our story helps us inspire and influence each other. I can't remember exactly how I met up with Katie. I know she actually reached out to me on LinkedIn and we started talking back and forth, conversating, and I realized that she had a powerful story and a powerful testimony. And I wanted to invite her to share her story in hopes that it will inspire someone else that is going through, to let them know that no matter what you've been through, there's always someone with a worse story. There's always someone that's been there and understands how you feel. So, Katie, I'm just going to read the brief bio that you sent me, and I'm going to read it from your voice, your perspective. It says, I'm a wife, a mother, victor, a warrior, an overcomer, and most importantly, I am here. I'm not ashamed of my past because it has prepared me for my present. The challenges in life I faced were quite embarrassing, but also life lessons for me to learn from and teach my daughters. I've been evicted. Hold on 1 second, guys. I've been evicted, yet I'm educated. I've been divorced, yet I obtained my degrees. If there's anything I've learned, it is to continue moving forward and not look back. We are all the same because we are women. We only look different. Let me share my differences with you so that we all can reach the same goal of overcoming. So I'm going to ask you to just share with our audience just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So again, my name is Katie Hosey. A little bit about me. I am a wife. I'm a mother. I'm also a student. Right now, I'm actually in school. I'm getting my master's in public health with a concentration in maternal and child health. I chose maternal and child health because I was a teen mom. And with that being said, I've done motivational speaking. I've reached out to young girls and young women just to kind of help and encourage them that even though they are young with a child, that does not mean that their education has to stop or any life goals that they have for themselves can't be achieved. I enjoy maternal and child health. I enjoy helping all women. It doesn't have to just necessarily be African-American women, but I enjoy helping any woman achieve her goal, her life goal, because, you know, being through some of the things that I've been through, it's not easy to achieve a goal. It's not easy to obtain a degree while going through some of the things that I've gone through, but that did not stop me. It did not stop me. And it shouldn't have even slowed me down. But like I said, I overcame it. So
let me ask you, because I think we started talking back and forth, like I said, through LinkedIn. Let me ask you, you told me that your story started pretty early. Tell me what happened to you. I can't say it sent you off course, but actually pointed you in the direction that was your focus for a number of years. What made you get to this point right here today while your focus is on maternal child health?
So it actually started when I had my oldest daughter. I have two daughters. It started when I had my oldest daughter in high school. I won't name the school, but I did go to high school in Athens. And when I got pregnant, one of my favorite teachers, she asked me, she said, you must really enjoy school lunch. And I said, well, why would you say that? I was about 5.5, 6 months pregnant. And she said, because you've been withdrawn from school. Your parents withdrew you from school. And I said, they did? You know, nobody told me anything. My mom and dad didn't tell me that this morning when I saw them. And so she showed me an email. And in that email, it had a list of students that had been withdrawn. And my name was about number 2. I was the second person to be withdrawn on that list. And so I called my mom right then. I called my mom and asked her if she withdrew me. She said no. I asked my dad if he withdrew me. He said no. So she told me to go and speak to my counselor. I went and spoke to my counselor, and he actually withdrew me from school. And he said, well, I withdrew you because you were pregnant, and I just thought you wanted to give up. Well, why would you think that? I never said that. My parents never said that. And so eventually we had to fight it at the Board of Education level. I mean, it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And my grandmother told me, who was also a teen mom, she told me that she didn't graduate from high school. And so I knew I was determined to graduate from high school because he gave up on me. So if you want to show me that I can't be something, give up on me. Tell me that I can't do it. And so once we fought that out, of course we won. It almost went to court, but it didn't. And so I stayed in school. I graduated on time, and I kept my honors. And he eventually actually got terminated. So I started that.
Now,
that's what made me. Okay.
Let me interrupt you because I wanted to go back to something that you said. How old were you?
I was 16. I got pregnant at 15. I delivered at 16.
Okay, and you were a senior in high school, or you were a junior?
No, I was a junior. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was a junior in high school.
So who helped you through this process? I mean, finding out that you were withdrawn without your parental permission, or without you sign, or any guardian, anybody signing the paperwork. Who helped you through this process? When I say helped you, who helped you with school, taking care of the baby, and getting over all the humps while you were trying to finish high school?
My parents helped me with my daughter with childcare, but one of my cousins had a home daycare. And so she kept my daughter while I was in school. My parents took her to school and brought her home with them. My dad worked near her home. So he would take her. I had to get her dressed in the morning. I breastfed exclusively. So I would have to nurse her. I would have to pump. So my parents helped me out a lot. And like I said, my grandmother told me that she didn't graduate. And that always stuck with me because she was embarrassed and ashamed that she was a teen mom. And so she didn't graduate, and she asked me to make sure that I please graduated. And so I did.
So your grandmother was one of your early cheerleaders.
My grandmother. Mm-hmm.
And she motivated you to do better than her. Mm-hmm. What about your parents? Just share a little bit about your parents. What did they do? Mm-hmm.
My parents are actually ministers. And so, of course, they're preaching no sex before marriage. And here I am pregnant. And so my father was very disappointed. He did not speak to me. I found out I was pregnant February 13th, 2002. So I'm sorry, 2003. So the day we found out I got pregnant until my daughter was about 6 weeks, he did not speak to me. He did not say good morning. He did not say happy birthday. He didn't say come eat. He didn't say one word to me because he was so hurt and disappointed. So.
And what about your mom?
My mom told me she was very hurt when we found out. She cried. She actually fainted. She cried, and she was very hurt because my mom was also a teen mom. So she knew what I was getting ready to go through. But my mom told me, you're not getting an abortion, and you're not giving this baby up for adoption. You're going to have this baby. But once I began to get bigger and continue my education and go to doctor's appointments and things like that, she slowly but surely came around. Now, she wasn't proud, but she did accept the fact that I did. I made a decision. It wasn't a smart decision, but I made a decision, and she supported that decision. She wasn't so much angry as she was hurt.
How did the community treat you? How did the church treat you? Because like you said, your parents are ministers, and the minister daughter ends up pregnant. How did you feel? How did they treat you?
The community was very welcoming. Now, of course, I got judged. You know, going into the grocery stores, there were the whispers and the points and the stares, but I've always been, outgoing and outspoken. So at first it did affect me, like, man, like, oh, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, but eventually my head was held back high. It was hurtful at first, but my mom told me, she would be there with me through it all.
So you got the support from your mom, even though you disappointed your dad. He came around, because it sounded like he came around for that. He helped you with that baby. So after you graduate, huh?
I said now they're inseparable.
Yeah, always happen. So now that you graduated from high school, being a single mom, did that affect your college choice? How did you make the decision for your next steps?
So essentially, I was supposed to go off to college. That was my plan. My sister was at Georgia Southern, and I knew I was going to Georgia Southern, like I was going to Georgia Southern. And then my mom was like, "You can't go to Georgia Southern with the baby." And I said, "Well, she could come with me." She's like, "You're not old enough to go off to college with the baby." And so I not really settled, but I ended up going to community college. Mm-hmm. And my dad actually worked at the college that I went to. So we would drop her off, and then I would go off to classes, and in between classes, I would sleep in his office and then go back to classes, and then we would get her from daycare.
Okay. So what were some of the lessons that you learned in that part of your life?
Ooh, time management. I learned a lot of time management. I learned study skills.
When you talk about time management, what do you mean by time management?
So I learned to sleep when she's asleep and clean while she's down and study when I could, because like I said, she was exclusively breastfed. So right. I'm a teen mom, I don't want to breastfeed, but that's the decision I made. I decided to breastfeed. I didn't really want to do formula, but I decided to breastfeed. So with that, of course, I nursed a lot more often as opposed to, having to think about. Mm-hmm.
So that means you had to get up early and prepare for school. You had to learn how and when to study, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So that was number one. So tell me another life lesson that you learned, especially now that you're going to college, that you have a baby, she's getting bigger, she's getting older. What were some of the things you had to do then? What made life?
So by the time I went to college, she was about 2. So at this point now we've done potty training. She's a big girl at this point. But one of the things that I had to do was she's always been a busybody per se. But whenever I would do my homework, I would always sit her down beside me and have her to do something with me, whether it was coloring or writing or tracing something. So whenever she would see my pencil or my book bag, she knew it was time to get ready to do some work. Right. Something else I learned though was I became a teacher. I instantly became a teacher because everything that she saw me do, she wanted to do. And I couldn't show her how to do things wrong. I had to show her the right way. Even when she started talking, instead of saying ta-ta, no, she needs to say thank you. The cute baby stuff is fun, but you can't really understand that. So I had to learn I instantly became a teacher.
Right. Let me ask you a question. And I'm getting in your business, but I think other women will want to hear that. Was your daughter's father still in her life when you had to do it all by yourself?
Both. So he was still in her life. He just wasn't in her life. So he was around. She saw him in passing. Now his mom helped me out a lot. She would get her a lot. And whether he chose to come around or not, that was up to him.
That's good. So what made you leave Athens? When did you decide to leave Athens? What was the reason for you leaving? What happened?
Athens is a very small place. We have 2 high schools. And that's no shade to Athens. Shout out to Athens. Okay, go Dogs. But I knew I always wanted more out of life than being stuck in Athens because there's not really a lot there. I actually applied to some colleges in Atlanta and I got accepted into a few of them, but I chose Kennesaw State.
Mm-hmm.
So once I got accepted into Kennesaw State, I relocated and I haven't been back.
Okay. What was your major when you first started in community college back home in Athens?
Nursing. I started off in nursing.
And what happened? Because we need more nurses. What happened?
So I started off in nursing. While taking the NLN, I started coughing really bad. Coughing turned into like dry heaving, and that turned into vomiting. And when you're taking that NLN, they're not letting you leave that room for anything. So once I got ready to like start to vomit, then they let me leave. Later on that day, I actually found out I was pregnant. So I did not do good when I finished my test. I did not do good on the NLN at all. And when I say not good at all, I mean not good at all. And then I saw that I could only take it 3 times. What is it? 3 times in a lifetime or something like that. So I knew I had 2 more chances. By the time I got my results back, I got accepted to Kennesaw State. So I took some classes over at Kennesaw State and I met my mentor, Dr. Jasmine Ward, and she told me about epidemiology. And when she first said it, I said, Epi, what? What is that? So she explained to me what it was. I took the course. And like I said, she became my mentor. I saw how she was in public health. And eventually I made public health my minor at Kennesaw State. At the time, they didn't even have public health as a degree, as a major. And so I made it my minor, health promotion. And once I started taking more and more classes, I just decided I'd rather do public health than nursing. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, and sometimes you can do both because that's my passion. My passion is actually nursing and public health. So you mentioned eviction in your discussion of yourself. Let's talk about the eviction. Let's talk about some of the life challenges you encountered along the way to where you are today. We're telling a story now. We're telling a story. So we gotta to let people know that, hey, life is a journey and it comes with challenges.
It does.
And then it's how we deal with these challenges. Because, people see you in the end and oh, she looks so fine, her hair done, she got the makeup on and all that kind of good stuff. And they don't know what you've been through. They don't know how your heart hurt, literally hurt. And I tell people, your heart do hurt. It do for you. You literally hurt. So let's talk about those challenges that you encountered and that you overcame.
Okay. So I was in a marriage my senior year at Kennesaw State, and I thought I met the love of my life. I'm talking about head over heels in love. And so I had finals up until Thursday. We got married that Saturday. So my professors gave me 2 weeks to turn in my final exams, couple papers. And so after the honeymoon and everything, we came back home and I kept saying, hey, we need to get Wi-Fi. We kept going back and forth, not bickering, but just, deciding which carrier to choose for our internet services. And eventually we did not get Wi-Fi. And I failed 5 classes.
Wow.
So that GPA, that beautiful GPA I had, went down to a 1.9 from those 5 courses. It turned into 4 classes, actually. It turned into 4 Fs. And so that marriage was not a good marriage. I did not realize I was being controlled until I realized I was being controlled. And so my ex-husband had 4 children. We were a blended family. And with those 4 children, I took on a lot of responsibilities. 2 of them were autistic. So with that being said, I instantly became a mother of 6. Their mom actually passed away. So it was just, myself and him. Right. We didn't get any help from his family. So it was just basically he and I. So eventually we began bickering. I didn't realize I was being controlled. Financially, I was being controlled. I mean, I was being verbally and mentally abused. And the crazy thing is, we actually went to church together.
Mm.
So eventually, the fights got worse. He left in the middle of the night. He took his children and left. And I guess his dad, our marital home was in his dad's name. And so his dad found out about it. My daughter came home from school and she texted me. She said, "There's a pink paper on the door." I said, "Don't touch it." And so I came home and I looked at it and I'm like, eviction? Like, I wasn't paying the mortgage. You know, he was still paying the mortgage at his dad's house. And eventually we got evicted. So I got, if you look it up, I think he filed for divorce. I'm gonna throw a number out there. December 15th. The eviction came December 18th. So
Wow.
we went to court and I had 30 days to vacate.
Wow.
It was absolutely horrible. It was right after Christmas we had to leave. I mean, Christmas was Sunday, Monday we had to be out. Like, we were moving.
Wow.
It was absolutely horrible. But it's okay. I reached out to like the Salvation Army and United Way. I reached out to I think it's 211, and they told me because I had 30 days to still stay there, I couldn't be accepted into a shelter. I couldn't get any type of help until my stuff was on the curb. Game changer. So now it's on. So now I'm looking at, places to live, finding places to live. I have friends searching for places for me to move to. And I mean, eventually we left.
And, being a single mom.
Again, back to being
out in the, with 2 children now at this time, trying to figure out how am I gonna make it? How am I gonna do all of that stuff? And it's obvious that you made it because you're here today.
Right. So I sat my girls down in the living room and I'm bawling. I'm sitting there crying my eyes out. And I'm like, he left. We gotta leave the house. And they looking at me like, girl, okay. That's it. My oldest daughter was like, okay, so when do you want us to start packing? Like, get yourself together. We gotta go. And here I am in my pity, just sitting there crying and she's looking like, Mom, you stronger than that. Like, get it together. Let's start packing. We can leave. We can do this. And so once I realized they saw my strength, I had no idea I was that strong. My children were like 13 and 7.
Resilience. We're resilient.
Children are very resilient.
They see it. They see it. They see us and they see what we can do. And, my grandmother always said to take your children and make them your friend. Not meaning that we're on the same level, but the fact that they can support you and encourage you and you do the same. Because we're one unit. It takes all of us working together to make this family function. Yeah. So your children were there. They saw the strength that you had, and they called it out.
My oldest daughter called it out. I mean, no filter. I mean, I'm literally crying. Snot. I'm talking about an ugly cry, Miss Carla. I mean, both of them are just looking at me like, okay, so when are we moving? Like, when are we gonna pack? When are we gonna start moving? And I was like, we gotta move. And they just looking like, Mom. And I'm looking like, why y'all not crying? Like, we gotta leave. And they were like, well, if he left, why would you want to stay? Check. Let's pack it up and move them out. That's fine. If they ready to move on and they're not holding on to it, why should I? Now, don't get me wrong. It didn't just take me time to get over it. Oh, it took me some time. I cried lots of time in the showers.
It's a process.
It's a process. Lots of times in the shower.
It's a process. And sometimes you feel like you've gotten over it, and then one day you may see something or you may hear something that triggers it, and you go right back.
Because it was right before the holidays, so I was really going through it. Yeah.
So tell me, I know you talked about, describe one of your biggest failures and what lessons did you learn?
One of my biggest failures. Not biggest failure.
And it's a good thing if you can,
Mm.
because failures are lessons. I see it as
I
a way.
honestly, and it's no hate in my heart, but I honestly would say my biggest failure was that marriage. That marriage taught me a lot. And statistics show that most women that are divorced get married faster than a single woman, only because we now know what we want. That marriage taught me patience. It taught me resilience. It taught me the strength that I had in myself. It taught me how to be meek because I was a firecracker. Like, you're not just going to say anything to me and think I'm not going to say anything back. You're not going to hit me and I'm not going to hit you back. I might not hit you back right now, but you're going to get your lick. You're going to get your lick. But I realized, like, even though that marriage failed, the lesson that I learned, I mean, I immediately, once I realized, like, okay, we got to go, I signed back up for classes. Like, let me go back to Kennesaw State. Let me go ahead and write my letter of, acceptance or of admission, and why should they accept me back into school. And I explained everything that happened. This is why I have 4 Fs. This is why my GPA is a 1.9. This is why. But once I did, I got back in school. We moved. We found a place on day 29.
Wow.
We found somewhere to move on day 29. Out of nowhere. It's in Dallas, Georgia, but it wasn't the best apartment, but it was mine. And it's what me and my children call home.
Right.
I gave the girls the bigger bedroom and I had the smaller bedroom, but it's 2 of them, you know what I mean, in one room as opposed to just myself. But I enrolled back in school. My car broke down. So in the divorce, I ended up getting one of the vehicles. It did not have heat. So like I said, this was right after Christmas. It's January now. I would iron our blankets so that we could stay warm while I drove my daughters to school. I'm talking about went through it. And so I signed back up for school. I got a loan. I paid my rent up for about 4 months with that loan. Like, I had a game plan. I paid my rent up. I paid my car insurance up for 6 months, and I put about $300 on each utility. That way, once I started working, and I wasn't even working. So I found a job about a month in. The rent is paid up. The car insurance is paid. I don't have any bills at this point. Everything is taken care of.
So you had a plan.
I had a plan. I definitely
had a plan.
Yeah.
And you put your plan into motion. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about the challenges, the eviction, the failing in school, not having a job, getting a car but no heat, not having a place, a place to stay, all of that stuff. That's challenging. As African American women or women of African descent, we deal with so much trauma in our lives. So I gotta ask you, so how were you taking care of yourself then? Because I like talking about self-care and self-love. What were you doing for you to maintain your sanity?
Trying to stay busy. I took as many classes as I could. I think I ended up taking 4. I took 5 classes. No, I took 4 classes. And within all 4 of those classes, I stayed on the dean's list from January 2017 until May 2018. I brought my GPA all the way back up. Wow. Shouted across the stage. When I say shouted, I mean I shouted across the stage. I made the AJC. I was in the AJC.
Go ahead.
I shouted across the stage. But what I did to keep myself busy, I worked 2 jobs. I worked at Allstate Insurance and I worked at the Children's Place. And I was in school full time. And I started doing Uber.
So how do you take care of yourself?
Well, I mean, self-love is the best love. I prayed a lot. I cried a lot. I didn't realize I was not taking care of myself until in my move, my godson said, so what, you gonna go back down to a 00? Because in high school, I was very skinny. And he said, Mom, you gotten really skinny. Like, when are you gonna, like, what are you doing? And then my daughter said, are you gonna eat dinner with us tonight? And I was like, I always eat dinner with y'all. But I'm sorry, my phone dropped.
That's fine.
I didn't realize I was not eating dinner with the girls. I was cooking dinner, but I wasn't eating dinner. So I would cook for them, take a shower, cry, go to sleep, get up, cook breakfast, take them to school, go to work. Before the job opened, I would cry in the car. leave work, leave that outside, go in the office, do what I had to do, leave work, cry again. And I kept asking my mom, when am I going to stop crying? And she said, I don't know when you're going to stop crying, but when you do stop crying, you won't remember it. And I'm like, well, that don't make no kind of sense. How am I going to not remember when I stop crying? But to this day, I don't remember when I stopped crying, but I know I stopped crying. And so eventually I started doing things that made me happy again. You know, once I got a day off, the girls were situated, I would take myself to the movies, or I would go out to eat by myself. You know, I would do things that I like to do, because nobody else can make me happy unless I make myself happy.
Right.
So I started doing, you know, little things, going to get a pedicure, even though I would take the girls to get their nails and toes done, and then I would come back by myself because I needed that alone time.
Right, right. That time, that self-reflection time. People don't realize how much value that is, just the stillness. No one's there, just you. You can think, and you think, you even have the foresight. That's what I feel like. That's when God downloads a lot into your spirit, at least into my spirit, during my quiet time. When I'm quiet and nothing's going on around me, most definitely.
And I journaled. I used to write down a lot of things. I would write down my emotions.
Yes.
And then eventually I would go back and look at those days like, man, I was really down on those days. And then it just started to build. And I would say, man, I wasn't as down as I was in January as I was in September when he left. And I wasn't down in March as much as I was in January. And so you just gotta, if you write it down to go back and look at, it's very helpful. Now you can't write it down and go back and mourn all over again. No, you can't relive that. You have to go back over it. This is where I was, and this is where I'm going.
Do you still journal?
I do. Every now and then, not as much, especially with the classes that I'm taking, but every now and then, I have journals for my girls. I try to get them to do it. Yeah.
I gotta say, how old are your girls now?
17 and 11.
Okay, I got something for them. So, what would you want to tell a young teenage girl from Athens or from anywhere who have been ostracized or looked down upon, or who's trying to break their generational curse and want to live? What advice would you give her?
Start with yourself. You can break that generational curse. You know, I honestly feel like once I found out I was having a girl, I told myself, she's not having a baby at 16. She's not having a baby she's not going to be a teen mom. And there's nothing wrong with it. You know, if you've made that mistake and you've decided to keep your daughter, even if you give her up for adoption, or you decide to keep your son, even if you decide to, and you still have that baby, you have to make it up in your mind that your child won't follow in your footsteps. And it's nothing wrong with following in your parents' footsteps, but it has to be the right footsteps. It has to be down the right path.
I'm going to ask you a hard question. And this is a hard question. Do you feel that something could have been said or done that would have helped you not to make the decision to have sex? No. And the reason why I'm asking this is because one of the things I've realized as a nurse educator and also as a woman with my own life experiences, and you know, when you sit down and you talk with other women, that there weren't conversations that were had with us, necessary conversations. I mean, I remember one of my coworkers and my friend, she was like, all they told her about sex and relationships was, don't take no wooden nickels. They found out what wooden nickels was until I think we were in our 40s. You know, my thing was, my mom told me, don't get pregnant, because if you get pregnant, you can't have no abortion, and you got to work and mind your baby. That's what my mom, and that was it. So, as a nurse, and even as a mom, I would see these young girls the same age of my son. I started getting them as moms. They were 14 years old coming in, and We all went to the same church. So do you think there could have been a dialogue, a conversation? What was it? What are your thoughts on that?
So my parents they always said, don't have sex before marriage. Okay, but why not? Just don't do it, Katie. Okay, but why not? What's gonna happen if I do? Well, you're gonna go to hell. So if I have sex, as soon as I'm done, I'm going to hell. And I guess because I'm a very sarcastic person, they were like, okay, she's just being sarcastic. But I genuinely wanted to know what's gonna happen. But because they were ministers, they didn't say, well, you'll get an STD, you'll get a baby, you may be a single mom. You know, nobody ever said why I couldn't have sex. They just said, don't do it. They didn't say it was going to feel good or feel bad. They just said, don't do it. But why not? And so I feel like my older sister put herself on birth control. And she said, well, I thought you knew to go. Well, I went to Teen Matters, but the women in Teen Matters knew my mom. Now I can't get birth control because you know my mom. So some friends and I actually went, and I just said, well, I'm just here with them. Katie, what you doing here? Oh, I'm here with her. I don't need anything, because I knew she was going to go back and tell my mom. And so I just feel like I don't regret any of it. I don't. But I just wish there would have been a dialogue to say, yeah, I knew that in sex ed, but I need my parents. You know, I need for them to have told me, well, of course, like I said, I knew you can have a baby. We don't want you to ruin your chances of going to college. We don't want you to miss out on getting your scholarships. We don't want you to miss out on, which I did, you know, but had they just said, well, we don't want you to be a statistic, I would have received that much better than just don't do it because you'll go to hell.
What about relationships? Did they tell you how to choose and who to choose? Because when we talk about the divorce, one of the things I had to reflect on, no one told me how to choose a mate. My grandmother said some random stuff. If you meet a guy, you gotta go to his village or his town to see what kind of family he comes from. But that was it. No one, did someone teach you about relationships? Did they teach you how to choose?
I have 4 brothers. I'm the baby of 4. I'm the baby of 6, but I have 4 brothers. I wasn't even supposed to be dating. So to find out that I'm pregnant, and then to find out my brothers said something to him, and then he withdrew from school, I wasn't even supposed to be dating. So for me to just end up pregnant was a really big thing. But I don't know.
So have you had that conversation with your daughters? Because you got 2 daughters, 17 and 11. Have you had that conversation yet?
We have. We had the conversation in 5th grade. We had the conversation in 8th grade. And she's a senior now. We have had the conversation in 12th grade. And she wants to go to the medical field. So she's really interested in everything medical. So she'll show me pictures of like, Mom, look at what a vagina looks like if it has chlamydia or gonorrhea or herpes. So yeah, we've had that talk. And I let her lead the conversation. There's a book, it's called, she got it when she was in elementary school, The Care and Being of You. I think it's an American Girl book or something like that. But it talks about the way the body changes when you're about 9 up until puberty. There's like 2 parts. It's like 9 to 12 and then 12 to 14 or something like that. But I got her that book when she was in elementary school. And it has lots of pictures and it's like cartoons and, you know, to make her comfortable in her body changing. And so once she got the book, she would come and ask questions. And I would answer those questions. And I wouldn't say, oh, you tutu or you cooch. No, just it's a vagina. I don't want to do names, because if she goes to your house and she's telling you her tutu hurts, you can be like, what is a tutu? But then I also wanted her to feel comfortable enough to even say vagina, because that's what it is. So I got her those books, and she actually gave it to her little sister, but we got those books and we started a dialogue. What questions do you have for me? And so some of the things that I didn't get taught, I was able to teach her. And I asked my parents, like, well, how come y'all just didn't tell us? But and they said, well, because we didn't want you to do it. That's not telling me. That's not telling me why.
Mm-hmm. That if it was anything, it make you curious. It makes somebody, some people curious.
It did make me curious. I'm pretty sure my mother will agree. I was a very curious child. I'm pretty sure I was the most spontaneous child. I'm pretty sure. But nobody, and I mean, and she was a minister. So of course she couldn't just say, well, don't do it because just don't do it because you're gonna go to hell. And I don't know if it was just at that time. Now she's more open. Now she's had to talk with my daughter. We actually had a ceremony for my daughter and gave her a purity ring. That was one of the things she wanted for Christmas when she was a teen, like 13. So we had a whole ceremony for her. My dad gave her a purity ring. We had this whole little, I mean, it was cute, but it was something that she chose to do. It was nothing that, I made her do. It was a decision that she made to keep herself. And I feel like it came from that conversation and that dialogue of opening up to even have that conversation, to be comfortable with her to have that conversation.
Right. So on point. So you're at that point now. You talked about public health and you talked about maternal child health. What are your goals for the next 5 years? What do you see yourself in 5 years doing what?
Essentially, I would love to open, not necessarily a practice, but I would love to have a center that could be dedicated to teen parents. And when we hear teen parents, we always hear the teen mom, but we don't ever really hear about teen dads. And so it would be for both parents, whether they together or not. Each of you needs this information. Both of you need to hear the information that I'm gonna hopefully have. So I would love to have my own center, working with teen moms and just helping them. I mean, whether it's with education, whether it's with where do I find a car seat if I don't have the money? I didn't get a baby shower. Where can I get a car seat? Where can I get a crib? Where can I, how do I get health insurance for my child? Or, I mean, it's so many avenues that you can go down. But I really would like to have a center dedicated to teen parents and their families, because it's not only the mom that's affected, it's the brothers. I talked to my brother today and he told me he was hurt when I got pregnant. And I never knew that. But it's for the families of teen parents. So that's I would love to have a center open for teen parents. I would love to.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome.
You have any last words? Anything you want to add? You want to say to other women out there?
I actually have a quote from Maya Angelou, and it says, "I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it." And that's a quote by Maya Angelou. So a lot of the things that have happened to me, of course, I can be changed by it. I have been changed by it. You can't reduce me to what I've been through, to what I've gone through. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed by it. I've talked to complete strangers in the store, and I've talked to complete strangers in Uber and shared my experience of how I got withdrawn from school without any parental consent. I've shared my story so many times, and I will continue to share my story because, like you said, you never know who you're impacting. You never know who you can impact. And I refuse to be reduced by my past. Absolutely not.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katie.
You're welcome.
Thank you for agreeing to come on and share your story with me and share your story with the world. We need more women like you, and there are more women like you. We just got to get them together. We just got to pull their stories out of them, and we just got to share, stand together, and hopefully influence not just ourselves, because the women are the nurturers of the family. We're the ones that take care of everyone in the family. So I thank you for taking the time to spend this hour or so with me here so we can learn about your story. I thank your family for allowing you the time so you can come on. Thank you so much. So much. And we will definitely probably get you back again and do a little bit more talk about public health and what you're doing now. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. All righty. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. We stop.